Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. So glad to have you guys here with me this morning. Got a little bit of a different camera angle. I kind of aimed it down. I wonder if I could center myself a little more. So much harder to deal with all of this than you would think. Ron's got the right idea. He just walks in, open his laptop, and boom, show's live. Me, I got to get here like an hour and a half early. I prep the show. Got to worry about it all. Anyways, good to be here. Madam Mim, good morning. Ooh, I like to see you here. John Atakis, good morning. Pony Boy, good morning. Glad you guys all made it today. It is Friday and absolutely TGIF. Am I right? Am I right? I can't believe I made it through this whole week without Ron. He's like my support guy, you know? It's not easy to do this. It's not easy to go for an hour and a half every day monologuing. So I really appreciate him being there, and I look forward to him coming back as soon as possible. Okay, so we had some pretty big news yesterday, and that is that our dear friend James Comey finally got indicted. So we're going to do a little flashback. This was on January 21st, 2021. Now, in my world, on January 21st, right, we broadcast Peasant's Perspective Season 1. And on January 20th, when Joe Biden was sworn in, and it was all weird because it was late and his hand wasn't on the Bible, and there seemed to be some CGI effects, people popping in and out behind on the podium. All of that aside, January 21st, James Comey puts out this video. At this point, by the way, I was already indicted. I was indicted on January 7th. I didn't know it yet. I'd had a conversation with the FBI, but I didn't know I was indicted. I wasn't arrested until February 11th. But on January 7th, I was already indicted. This is James Comey on January 21st.
Convict him, bar him from future service, have the local prosecutors in New York pursue him for the fraudster that he was before he ever became president, lock him up for the garden variety frauds he did there, but don't give him that center stage, that dominant role in our national life just down the street where Joe Biden is trying to heal this nation. Convict him, bar him from future service.
So James Comey on January 21st was already saying you need to convict Donald Trump on all these petty crimes, get him, put him in prison, bar him from ever running again. Unfortunately, they did try him and they did convict him, maybe not fast enough. And now the boomerang is back because yesterday it finally became official.
Welcome back. Breaking right now. Tonight, a major update to a story we brought to you earlier in the hour. A grand jury has just handed down an indictment for former FBI Director James Comey. The Justice Department accuses Comey of lying to Congress while under oath back in 2020. Let's bring in David Spunt with all the breaking details. David, what can you tell us?
Well, Jillian, we are waiting to get the actual details of the indictment. We're just told that an indictment has been handed up against the former FBI Director, James Comey. So I don't want to speculate on the actual charges yet until I see the paper in hand. That's the only responsible thing to do. But we know that James Comey, the former FBI Director, has been indicted. We're waiting to see if there's any sort of comment from the Justice Department.
Now, that might have sent chills up your spine a little bit. Woo! A lot of you guys probably already found out about this yesterday. But, woo! Finally got one. Finally got one. Isn't even for the big crimes, by the way. It's kind of for the petty stuff, so we'll see. Oh, but before we do that, let me do this. I want to tell you guys about Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, and they're putting their money where their values are. Every call you make helps fund causes that protect faith, family, freedom, and our Constitution. Patriot Mobile is exactly in line with the peasants. Right now, Patriot Mobile is giving you an entire month of service, absolutely free when you switch and you use the promo code COURAGE25. That's right. Your first month is on them. You'll get reliable nationwide 4G and 5G coverage, affordable plans that you and your family, and 100% US-based customer service support. And the best part, you know your dollars are supporting causes you believe in. Go to patriotmobile.com or call 972-PATRIOT today. That's patriotmobile.com, promo code COURAGE25 for 1 month free of service. And I know when you call them, you talk to someone who speaks English proficiently, and no matter what carrier you have, they can transfer you over and you pretty much keep the same service. So please take a look at Patriot Mobile. They are the mobile provider for 1776 Live. We recommend them. And one of the main reasons why we recommend them, aside from supporting conservative causes, is because they will not give your cell phone data to the government without a warrant, unlike AT&T and Verizon, who just handed it over after January 6th. So go to Patriot Mobile. And that's kind of fun to get that ad read out of the way so early. So Jen Psaki was on with who we call Fusion Ken, or I think Dan Bongino gave him that nickname. He's Fusion Ken because he's worked with Fusion GPS to get the Russian dossier spread around. So Fusion Ken had a little bit to say about former director James Comey being indicted, and he has one simple conclusion. When they indicted Trump and all his friends, it was different.
That is a watershed. That is a line that we have crossed now in this country. And Republicans are going to say, Jen, well, wait a second, didn't the Biden administration do that? Didn't the FBI go after Donald Trump? That was completely different. That had no resemblance to what happened here with James Comey. Those were investigations based on the facts and the law, pursued by career FBI agents and career.
Look at Jen Psaki's face. She's like, oh, it wasn't political?
Prosecutors overseen by a special counsel, totally walled off by any of the political leadership in the Biden administration. Millions of Republicans do not believe this, and that is one of the reasons we are where we are. But it is a fact. And this, what happened with Comey is so much different.
Okay, so if we take him at his word, right, this is a fact that they just went after Donald Trump because of all of his egregious crimes, and it was career prosecutors that just did it. They didn't even have to be told to do it from the White House because they didn't need direction. They saw a crime, they went after it. All right, well, that sounds all great, except for one thing. So if Joe Biden didn't direct it, who was in charge? This kind of goes back to the auto pen scandal kind of thing, right? Like, oh, so you guys were just running amok, just randomly charging former American politicians that are, you know, the most popular people on the planet. And it's like, oh, no, I mean, we saw a bookkeeping error and we just had to prosecute. Okay, well, by that standard, if it's as simple as seeing a bookkeeping error and you got to prosecute, well, maybe we can just look at James Comey at some of the basic things he did, like, I don't know, lying under oath, telling the Congress that he didn't authorize a leak when he clearly did. This is what John Solomon talked about last night on Sean Hannity's show when he gave his little blurb about imminent. And at this point, it was talking about he was indicted when John Solomon was talking, because part of the talk yesterday was it's imminent, right? And now it happened. So he's talking about what happened and exactly what those charges are.
John, let's start with the news and what you're hearing tonight.
Well, listen, the key testimony against James Comey is going to come from his inner circle. One of the people that he trusted and ran the FBI alongside of will be the key witness saying, no, he authorized me to leak information contrary to what he testified to Congress. That's going to be a difficult case for James Comey to defend. I just want to step back. Yeah, well, it could be McCabe. It could be Daniel Ritchie. It could be James Baker. I keep an eye on James Baker. Remember the documents we had on your show a couple of weeks ago? All three of those are in position to testify they were authorized to leak. We'll see which one is person three when we in the indictment. But I would bet it's James Baker from what I know. The second thing that is just the pure magnitude of what happened today. 50 years ago this year, an attorney general was convicted for the first time in history of crimes. Tonight, for the first time in history, an FBI director is indicted on crimes, and both men face the same charges: false statements and obstruction of justice. It's an extraordinary moment, a grave moment, when a director of the FBI is accused of this level of criminality.
Your sources tonight are telling you what, John Solomon? What could be next?
I think other government officials are in danger of being indicted in the coming weeks, some in the FBI, some in other parts of the government. This is the beginning of a large accountability roundup in government. And I think what's really remarkable, most of my career I've spent uncovering FBI cover-ups. The FBI has a long history of misleading Congress. Comey falls into that. But the evidence against Comey tonight comes from the FBI and its new director, Kash Patel, who promised radical transparency, and he actually provides the key piece of evidence that leads to this indictment. If you're a member of Congress and you've been tired of lying, being lied to by the FBI, tonight's the first time the FBI actually did something about it. They turned in their own man tonight. I think that's an extraordinary part of this story.
Let me get my camera and my mic back on. I'll tell you what, I feel almost like I have a permagrin on my face. I was telling my wife last night, my wife and mom, my mom's in town. Okay, so we're sitting at the table and I'm like, kind of just reflecting on James Comey being indicted and how significant this is. And I'm like, I spent 14 months in federal prison. I spent 14 months in federal prison. I spent time in solitary confinement. I had times where I was afraid for my life. There were times where I was on, I was mistreated by guards. There were times where food was not, in my opinion, safe or healthy, right? There were times that I didn't have what I considered clean water, access to clean water. My wife was essentially left destitute at the mercy of charity of loved ones. And, some of you here in the audience probably made small donations to my wife to help keep her going. I lost my business, right? I lost 40 years of momentum and building my life. I lost a lot. I kept some great things and I found out who I really am through the whole process. But the reality is I spent 14 months in federal prison and was looking at a release date in 2030. I was going to spend another 4 or 5 years in federal prison. James Comey is one of the dominoes that led to that. Had it not been for James Comey botching the Hillary Clinton mid-year exam, had it not been for James Comey being a critical participant in the Russiagate affair, there would have been no January 6th. Donald Trump probably would have won the 2020 election. We may or may not have even had the whole COVID thing, right? There wouldn't have been a protest over a very faulty election. Now, there's some blessing in the suffering. There's, hey, we found out things we didn't know. And hey, maybe now this accountability can make it so the empire can continue for another 100 years. I don't know. Maybe there's a blessing in it all. But at the end of the day, this man was one of the dominoes that led to what could have been totally devastating. It was totally devastating, right? People died. People committed suicide. Families were destroyed. Husbands and wives got divorced. Children were without fathers for up to 4 years, right? I mean, this was a huge deal. So when I look at Comey and I have like a little smile on my face, it's like, yeah, there were some of us that had to stand through this and had to suffer through this. And I'm going to share with you a little bit later when we get into more of the J6 stuff. I mean, some of this suffering was immense that January 6ers went through. So the fact that James Comey is getting the charges he's getting, first of all, they're nothing compared to what he actually did, right? It's like technicalities. You lied to Congress. Yep. Okay, well, Steve Bannon, right? That's 4 months, 6 months in prison, something like that. I think his obstruction of Congress charge might carry another charge, but the likelihood of getting max sentenced on that stuff is still going to put him probably less time than I was sentenced to, right? But at least there's accountability. Here's what Trump says.
Well, I can't tell you what's going to happen because I don't know. You have very professional people headed up by the Attorney General, Todd Blanche, and Lindsay Halligan, who's very smart, good lawyer, very good lawyer. They're going to make a determination. I'm not making that determination. I think I'd be allowed to get involved if I want, but I don't really choose to do so. I can only say that Comey's a bad person. He's a sick person. I think he's a sick guy, actually. He did terrible things at the FBI. And but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen. Well,
so unlike the Biden administration, if I don't close out the tab right away, my audio is all funky. Unlike the Biden administration, they never publicly talked, right? Biden never publicly came out and said, I want the Department of Justice to do X, Y, Z or anything like that. And it's under this supposition and this idea that after Nixon, the Department of Justice needed to be independent of the White House, that now we've basically created a pseudo fourth branch of government. If you're the Attorney General, you are a co-equal, executive to the president. And that was the mentality they wanted. They want the Department of Justice walled off, separate. And what that did was, for the left specifically, it became a tool for them, right? It's not working constitutionally. It's not accountable to the executive branch. And you have a lot of institutionalists there, people who work there for 10, 20, 30 years through different administrations. So Clinton's did this, but Obama especially he dug his people deep into the DOJ with this idea that it's independent. It is actually beyond accountability. Like, who determines if someone lies to Congress, who's supposed to prosecute it? The DOJ. If the DOJ ignores it, aka Eric Holder, there's no accountability, right? They protect their own. It's a messed up system. Donald Trump comes in and he puts in Jeff Sessions. He's like, we're going to rein it in. Jeff Sessions can't rein it in. He puts in Bill Barr. Bill Barr's like, well, we got to keep it totally independent, right? Ideologically, those guys might have been in line with Donald Trump, strong executive, a couple things like that, but they were definitely not going to go break down the institution. Barack Obama and Joe Biden have been proven time and time again to have colluded with the Department of Justice behind closed doors in order to effect their ideology, their desires. We know on January 5th, he met with FBI, DOJ, Obama gave him marching orders. We know there are many other instances where this is going on behind the scenes. Okay. But in public, separate, independent. Trump does the opposite. Most likely in private, he's not having discussions about what are you going to do to James Comey? When is this going to happen? Instead, he plays the game out in the public. He puts out a tweet. Hey, Pam Bondi, let's get these people arrested, right? There's probably going to be nothing showing up in a FOIA with directions telling him do X, Y, Z, like we have seen coming out of the Biden administration, where you literally have FBI agents saying, this is who I'd like to target. I'd like to have Peter Navarro in handcuffs by such and such date, right? With no underlying crimes necessarily. It's just a target and let's go figure it out. You think about all the prosecutions they did around Trump. It was, who's a guy around Trump? Let's find something and target them. We've already seen the FOIA emails that have come out. Trump does it over truth, right? The Democrats did it behind closed doors. It's the exact opposite. So this is, Jack Posobiec and some other conservative influencers here sitting at the Charlie Kirk desk. And I think they're doing the human events. I think Jack Posobiec and Charlie shared a studio or something like that. Anyways, they're talking about this Comey indictment and providing a little bit more information. And they say that Comey's charged by the same statute that charged the January 6ers, which isn't totally accurate. It's a different statute. His is like 1505 or 1205. Ours was 1508 or 1505. Ours was 1512. So slightly different.
First of all, before we do takes, let's get, and Blake is always the best at this, what do we know about these indictments?
Exactly. So the indictment is pretty short, so we can basically read the whole thing. So this is the indictment, the United States of America versus James B. Comey Jr. So count one is false statements within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the United States government. That's lying to Congress, but in fancy speak.
In the jurisdiction of Congress.
In the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the United States government.
It's so good.
So on or about September 30th, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James Comey, did willfully and knowingly make a materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement in a matter within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the U.S. government by falsely stating to a U.S. senator during a Judiciary Committee hearing that he, James Comey, had not quote, authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person one. Who could person one?
Person one was always Trump.
Be?
Person one was always Trump.
Two,
always Trump.
And then they say that statement was false because, as James Comey knew then and there, he had in fact authorized person three to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person one, all in violation of 18 U.S. Code 1000.
I heard person three was Andrew McCabe. Is that
it is almost certain that this is Andrew McCabe was leaking things to the press at the instigation, at the approval of Comey, and that he then allegedly
Does that make sense, though, that
this.
Andrew McCabe would, or would he have sent a dispatch sort of one of his little minions to do so?
Well,
or is it just that he dispatched it, so it's still he's still personally?
Yeah, that may be the same thing, right? Is that he had his own people who, I mean, those people could be working with the, with the prosecutors.
Now that said, though, if he was doing that with the authorization of the director of the FBI, would that be a crime?
Well, if it was
not
confidential information, and
If it
you're
was classified
leaking-
information, it still would be, by the way.
Yeah.
For the record.
And then they have count 2, obstruction of a congressional proceeding on or about September 30th, 2020, same day. This is a date he testified before the Senate.
Oh, okay. So
in
they're
the
saying he
Eastern District of
obstructed
Virginia,
Got it.
James Comey did corruptly endeavor to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry under which an investigation was being had before the Senate Judiciary Committee by making false and misleading statements before that committee in violation of 18 U.S. Code 1505. So basically, they're double tapping him. They're saying, by saying a false statement to Congress, he lied to Congress and engaged in obstruction of what Congress was investigating.
So was it obstruction of Congress or obstruction of justice?
It is obstruction of a congressional proceeding.
So I believe this was the same one that was used for a lot of the J6ers. Isn't that right?
That was obstruction of an official proceeding. I
Okay.
think that's slightly different.
But it might be under the same.
I'm gonna go. I'll go check that. Let's see what.
Or it might be
obstruction-
like a sister statute or something. It's very close.
I think obstruction of an official proceeding is a bit different because that covered, like, let's see, federal law, U.S. Code 1512. This is 1505. So, let's see, obstruction of a 15. Obstruction of pending proceeding, 18 U.S. Code 1505. Maybe they did get him on the same one.
Aha!
That would be...
No, because I remember I talked to Julie Kelly about that so many times, and we were talking about the construction of that statute and how it was made, and really what the purpose of it was, et cetera, et cetera. And so I remember that, that string. I'm so not a lawyer, but I remember that code.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's poetic, although it is also interesting. They're going for that simply from the fact that I know one of the legal cases in J6 was kind of premised on the fact that I believe
they were trying to overturn it.
Well, they overturn it because the obstruction of official proceeding law was apparently intended to cover like almost terrorism type stuff, like you're attacking, like you're burning documents.
So he's inaccurate in the way he says that. It was basically if there was an investigation that Congress was looking into, and it all started with the Enron case, right? During Enron, Arthur Anderson started shredding documents, and so it was obstructing an official investigation of Congress. So this is obstructing a proceeding. So they're different. Again, it's in the same section, right? It's 15. Mine was 1512. His is like 1505. So I just asked Grok what the max sentence would be for these charges and then what the sentencing guidelines would be. What's interesting is Grok is having a very hard time even acknowledging that James Comey's been indicted. So I guess we'll find out. It's taking a long time to think about this. I think I probably could have gotten it to Google faster. So we'll let that figure out what it's doing. And this is Joe Scarborough. And I find this hilarious, which, by the way, going back to the James Comey thing, what those guys were saying there. This is, excuse me, got something in my eye. Okay. So, well, no, let's play this Joe Scarborough part and I'll get to my point.
It bears repeating. You do this, you turn the person you hate into a martyr. You make them bigger than ever. You unite people behind them. Donald Trump understood this in his own political campaign, and yet he's now making Comey a martyr for the rule of law. That will be the first line in his obituary, that he was an FBI director, but that he became a martyr because a president said on social media to an attorney general, go and arrest this guy for the first time in our lifetime. And so now the world looks at James Comey and they see that he is a political and a legal martyr.
Okay. I finally got he's a political and a legal martyr. Yeah. Joe Scarborough, you could have given that advice to the Democrats early on, and maybe things could have turned out a little bit differently for you. Okay, so listen to this. This is the sentencing guidelines here. So for the USC 101 or 1001 and the 1512, the sentencing guideline, okay, the max sentence for the one is 5 years in prison for false statements to Congress, and the other one, the max sentence is 10 years in Congress. Mine was 20 years. I was looking at 40 years collectively. So he's looking at basically 10 years or collectively. Now, when you get down to the sentencing guidelines, this is how they do it. They do like sentencing guidelines and stuff like that. I'm looking at his points. So I had 31 points and they bumped it down after an appeals court ruling down to 27 points. He's looking at like 17 points. Okay. And that's with adjustments. So that's assuming that he had enhancements on the charges. He's looking at a sentencing range of one of two different ranges. He's looking at 15 to 21 months or 24 to 30 months. Now, both of these are going to qualify for First Step Act. So if he gets 15 months, he's looking at like 7 to 8 months in prison. If he gets 24 months, he's looking at like 12 to 13 or 14 months in prison. That's it. That's it. That's all they got for James Comey. A year in prison. I served it. I served your whole sentence, James Comey. I served what would be your max sentence. I served that. Yep, I did that. So I feel like now I do 14 months standing on my head, right? I get it. I know how to jail. James, it's going to be 6 really hard months, and then you're going to kind of hit your stride and you'll be out the door. It'll actually be more painful for you because your sentence is so short. You may never normalize because you'll always be thinking you're 1 foot out the door, right? It's the guys that got to be there like 5 years plus. You have to live there, so you figure out how to do it. Yeah, Ruth Friedrich says, that's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Now, remember, they got, what's the mobster we always reference? They got Al Capone. They got him on, like, what, 1 charge of tax fraud or something like that. That's enough. That's enough. Right now, if they can max this guy out, except he got a Biden judge. So I have very little faith that they're going to max him out. I don't even really necessarily believe they're going to get to a trial, to be completely honest with you. It's not looking good. Here's James Comey. He got indicted yesterday, and he is taking a stand.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees. And
It's funny. He says the cost of standing up for standing against Donald Trump. I don't know, James. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot bigger cost standing for Donald Trump. Think about that for a second.
You shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant. And she's right. But I'm not afraid.
Do you remember the speech Joe Biden gave with the red background calling MAGA terrorists? Oh, yeah, about that fear thing.
Afraid. And I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
Yeah, let's have a trial. We'll see about that, man. Again, I'm not angry. I'm not angry, but there has to be a balance to the ledger, man. There has to be a balance to the ledger. I love how he's like, I'm not. James Comey, you're deep shit, man. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, this is Andrew Weissman and Fusion Kendallanian, along with their MSNBC hosts. And this was before they knew about the indictment. But again, the warnings, right?
Joyce, if it is such a dire moment, what is your advice, your message right now to those people inside the Justice Department, inside these U.S. attorney offices, the rank and file prosecutors that are doing the work to bring cases like this one? What do you say to them?
So the mission inside of U.S. attorneys' offices across the country is to keep their communities safe. And in difficult times like this, the traditional advice to federal prosecutors is to keep their heads down, do the important cases in front of them. Because the cases that we're talking about, Anna, that's maybe 1% of what's going on in the Justice Department. But every day there's violent crime, there's drug crime, there's civil rights violations and white-collar crime that prosecutors and agents across the country are working on. The issue prosecutors are hardwired to understand, and I hope Americans will understand this too, is that when you become an assistant United States attorney or a political appointee in an office, you check your politics at the door. You walk in and you do your job looking at the facts and the law without fear or favor. And that's what I believe Andrews and my former colleagues across the country are trying their hardest to do right now. There may be a moment for difficult choices coming for many prosecutors. And I hope that when those moments come, that the American public will stand up and support these people. I think if there is a move to indict Jim Comey, we will likely see resignations out of Alexandria and Richmond. We may see other forms of protest by career prosecutors. It's a unique moment, and I think that these people will rise to it.
Joyce Vance, Andrew Weissman, guys, thank you so much. Ken, great.
We'll see. We will see if they actually end up doing that. We did have one resignation yesterday, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about crypto. Let's be clear. Cryptocurrency is no longer emerging. It's here. And this latest move cements the reality in the biggest way yet. Trump Media Group just linked a massive $6.4 billion deal, just inked a massive $6.4 billion deal with Crypto.com, the world's top crypto platform. They're teaming up to scoop up $6.4 billion in CRO, the powerhouse token that fuels fast, low-fee DeFi staking rewards and real-world perks like cash back on your spends. To launch America's first CRO treasury. When it's done, this new company will be the biggest CRO holder out there. Want in on the action? Head to Crypto.com today and grab some CRO. Let's make crypto great again. You know, one of the things that's pretty cool is Trump has been such a friendly crypto president. In fact, one of the guys that I associate with is a huge crypto guy. He's completely out of the financial matrix, totally invested in Bitcoin specifically. And he has zero qualms about the president or how he's managing with crypto. I asked him, though, are you worried about, digital ID? Yes, absolutely. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Okay. So James Comey's been indicted. We're supposed to be having a bunch of resignations now, and we're going to talk a little bit about how dirty this Eastern District of Virginia is where Comey was indicted. First of all, random judge lottery, we get a Biden judge, right? So that right there to me is like, I don't know that this Biden judge is going to be a true fair broker. I think there's going to be a lot of hypocrisy. The fortunate thing about what's happening now, though, is America is slowly but surely waking up. It's not en masse. It's literally one person at a time, right? It's one peasant tuning in. But when you're dealing with matters like we are right now in our greater political spectrum, where you're dealing with truth and fiction, right? One party can't positively identify what gender they are because they don't look in their pants and think that that is a objective truth. They think that what's in your pants is subjective, right? That is crazy talk, right? So we're not having a debate about reality. We're having a debate between your illusion and what's reality. That's what's going on here, right? We're having a debate between people who are like, it's true because I say it's true, versus people who are like, can you show me, right? So this goes back to the Michael Knows. Like, we're not debating truth anymore. Your hypocrisy is beyond the pale. You just spent 4 years prosecuting Trump, prosecuting his associates, prosecuting his supporters, and you just spent the last 15 years using government against conservative entities, aka Tea Party groups with the IRS targeting, aka different lawfare things that have happened against pro-life groups and against traditional Catholics and fundamental Mormons and sovereign citizen movements, which are really just people who want to be true Americans, right? The whole thing screams hypocrisy. This gentleman here, Stephen A. Smith, that I'm going to play, sports commentator, you'd be surprised how much influence he has in Black America, right? I was in prison with people who would watch his show. They care a lot about what he says. He mainly sticks to sports, but more and more he's becoming involved in the political arena. And a lot of that is because the Democrats push politics into sports, right? Disney pushed politics deep into the ESPN ecosystem and whatnot. So Stephen A. Smith now has a right to commentate, and he's actually one of the front runners for the Democrats. I mean, that's how lost they are. So let's hear what he has to say about the hypocrisy. Stephen A. Smith is a voice on the left that is trying to steer the ship more towards logic and more towards truth. Like, we're not debating things anymore. We're actually having a reality check about what is truth.
Here's the problem. Did we say that when Tucker Carlson was pulled off the air by Fox News? Did we say that? Did we say that? Or would we say that if Gutfeld was pulled off the air by Fox News? Government overreach, the Biden administration and what they were doing when it came to Facebook and X. Were we as outspoken then as we were over the last few days? Because you see, on this show, we're talking consistency. This is why I call myself an independent. This is why I call myself a centrist. Because what I want to do is I want to be able to look at you based on the facts and say, you're right or you're wrong, and that's it. But when you're able to point to the other side doing the same damn thing, preceding you, by the way, and what you're doing, then it becomes a bit more alarming because the word hypocrisy comes into play. And you're able to look at it and say, yo, the other side did the same thing. So why are we engaging in partisanship here?
Yeah. He's looking at everything that's been going on. He's like, you use censorship through Facebook and X. You did political lawfare. You just prosecuted Trump. And it's interesting because they're like, oh, we can't do this partisanship thing. Trump 1.0. Hillary Clinton, let her go. His people wanted to prosecute her. He said, let her go. Right? Former president's wife, don't want to go down that road in America. It's too banana republic-y, even though she committed crimes. Right? He did that. So it's not like the Republicans came to the table and they struck first. No, it's exactly the opposite, actually. It's the Democrats who struck first. And now they're acting like, you can't do this. This is partisan. Well, of course it's partisan. You guys weaponized government. Here's a former FBI agent talking about how Comey was literally recruited by Obama and Hillary.
I bet James Comey was wishing Joe Biden had given him one of those preemptive pardons.
That is correct, Jesse. And you and I have spoken about this several times. And, Jesse, he is the reason back in 2016 with respect to taking a FBI institution that their reputation was always beyond reproach. No one ever challenged the confidence in any of the investigations that ever came out of the FBI. But when he held that press conference in July of 2016 and took a position which should have been through then acting Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and took her position to make a prosecution decision that they were not going to prosecute Hillary Clinton. That was then the downfall and the beginning of the reputation of the FBI becoming permanently damaged and eroded. And quite frankly, then he was solicited by outside forces, by the Clintons and by Barack Obama and others, to then, could you imagine, where he's in the inner circle with the highest, with the president of the United States, keeping notes on the president and then utilizing those notes to keep them in his back pocket to at some point try to pull them out as quote unquote, gain favor. This man was dishonest and he took advantage, and quite frankly, he should be held accountable. The only thing I hope and pray for is that this finally will be the beginning of rehabilitating the reputation of the men and women, and quite frankly, what's going on in the world, the men and women of the FBI who are keeping us or trying to keep us safe and sound. Hopefully this is the beginning of trying to get them back on course and showing us Americans that this FBI was in fact weaponized. It was polarized, and they were being used for the purpose of dethroning President Trump, which in and of itself could not have ever been imagined in modern American history. But quite frankly, we got there. Now, thankfully, Kash Patel is trying to clean it up.
So what's funny is that FBI agent's perspective is that James Comey sullied the FBI when he stepped in Loretta Lynch's position and made a prosecutorial decision. FBI is just supposed to investigate, turn over the information to the DOJ. They decide what to do with it. Yeah, that's true. I mean, looking at the FBI, I think of not Rand Paul, but Ron Paul's conclusion where he's like, is the FBI supposed to do anything but spy on political opponents? Like all the way back to J. Edgar Hoover. That's all they've ever done. So all this is this is the first time that the FBI has been exposed and like officially caught. Every other time it's like, oh, trust us, we're doing mostly good stuff. But yeah, years and years ago, there might have been a guy that did something bad. That's kind of the aura they put out. All right, John Atakis says, I thought that your CRO ad was failure, which turns out he corrected later. Familiar. I bought in 2022 and it's up 93%. Well, good for you. Should have put my inheritance in that and doubled it. Pony Boy, he should have invested in his future and paid for one of those pardons from the Biden mafia. That's right. I bet you he's regretting it right now. For a quick 50 grand, you could have had a get out of jail free card. All right, this is Bill Maher talking with Stephen Miller about the future of the Democrat Party. Again, the Democrat Party, if anybody who's paying attention, because you're dealing with truth versus fiction, once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. That's kind of the whole point, right? Once someone converts over to the current Republican side or the conservative side, it's based on things like, gender. I don't really need to debate that, and I'm not really open to debate, like what Stephen Miller said. Once you recognize that James Comey was meddling and kicked off this Russiagate thing and Hillary Clinton paid for it, you're not really open to them being like, well, Trump's a Russian stooge and he's trying to side with Russia. Get out of town, right? Once you recognize that everything the Washington Post and the New York Times publishes is a propaganda piece, you stop taking it very serious. Okay. That's what's same thing with the mainstream news. I mean, the mainstream news has lost its ability to solidify a narrative because the internet's wild, right? The internet takes up so much more. So it's incredibly important that we pay attention to some of these influencers like Bill Maher. He splits the world. He's on TV, but he also has an incredible amount of influence. Bill Maher is as close to Joe Rogan on the left as you're going to get. Audience is a fraction of the side, but he kind of has that gravitas for their side. And Bill Maher is concerned that we won't have a 2028 election. Again, in another one of those, I don't think Bill Maher has seen it yet. Right? He's still in this projection phase where he believes that everything the Democrats say about the Republicans, he hasn't quite caught the mirror angle yet, where you look back and see your own hypocrisy. Oh, the Republicans are censoring Jimmy Kimmel. Are you unaware what Google and Facebook and Parler and what these groups happened over the last 4 or 5 years? Are you completely unaware? Were you upset when Tucker Carlson got fired, or do you just think, oh, he's got a crappy show? It was only the number one show on cable. So, on the Republican side, when guys get fired, they go out on top. Jimmy Kimmel, his ratings are in the gutter. Of course they fired him. They were probably going to fire him anyway. Look at the Colbert Show. They're losing 40 million or 100 million. I can't remember what it is. They're losing an incredible amount of money every year putting on his show. Right? That's not the case with Gutfeld. That wasn't the case with Tucker Carlson. So there's some hypocrisy there. And so Stephen A. Smith hasn't quite caught that mirror view. So he actually thinks that in 2028, the Republicans will not allow a transfer of power if the Democrats were to win. 2020, anyone? Hello?
For 2026 or 2020.
All right, here we go.
Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel for the Democratic Party for 2026 or 2028? My last question to you.
I think they can win those elections. I don't think the right, as long as they appear nutty to the right, and there is a lot of nutty on the far left, as long as they appear that way to those Republicans, it doesn't matter if they win the election. The right is not going to give up power. Wow. That's my prediction. I mean, they've already shown they are perfectly comfortable with Trump still has not conceded the 2020 election.
Right.
It's, as Stalin said, it's not who wins the most votes, it's who counts the votes. And so if the right still thinks that the left is an existential threat to this country because they want to rewrite all the rules of human nature and then have nobody debate them, I don't think it matters if the Democrats win. The Republicans will just find a way to say, no, actually, that's not going to happen.
So Bill Maher's position is that the Republicans will just not leave power. That since they're the ones counting the vote. Now, keep in mind, Trump is going to do some executive orders with regards to electronic machines and regards to mail-in voting. So that's going to amplify this concern that, oh, it's just Republicans counting the vote, they're rigging the election. So when we have machines, you rig it. When we don't have machines, we're the ones who are rigging it. But we're the ones rigging it by just making sure everybody's vote counts once. You guys are rigging it in like actual rigging, like the cheating kind of rigging. Okay? You think we're cheating because we're going to win. And you winning equals cheating. Like you can't win without cheating because that's the truth on your side. And so you just assume that the Republicans can't win without cheating either. Right. So I remember one time Donald Trump said when he came into office the first time, all these business leaders around the world came to him and they're like, listen, it's gotten so bad out there. It's whoever cheats the most wins. Right. We just want a fair playing field where, you know, a good product gets sold, not a product where crappy products get sold, but it's based on who's paying who and who's greased the skids. And, you know, they just wanted a fair playing field. Now, I have some serious concerns. This is kind of a funny little video here. And it's some, I don't know, who knows what kind of show this is. Some guy's on a podcast and he's talking about gas stations and where gas comes from. Yesterday on the show, I said, some kids don't know where milk comes from. You say, where does milk come from? They say the store. They don't know it actually comes from a cow. Well, this is the same situation. This is a full-grown adult. He's over 18. He can vote. He has the right to an opinion. But unfortunately, there's something that is missing in his education where he's making an assumption and he's disbelieving how things really are with regards to gas stations. Now, this is why you can't look at the American education system and say it's been some glowing success.
How do you just put a gas station somewhere? Where do they get the gas? You know what I'm saying? How do you
truthfully not know the answer?
I swear on everything I love. Because listen to me first. There's grass right there, right? Under that grass, mud. Where's the oil? Listen, don't let me finish. That was not there. There was nothing there but open terrain and land. And they just decided, hey, we're gonna put a gas station here. How do they put down the gas pumps and then they just put a wire down or like a tube down there and then all of a sudden magical gas pops up? How do they get the gas?
I'm about to take your beanie off and reset you. There's no way that you are this naive to the world.
Okay, well, where's the tub of gas, right?
There's huge tanks at the bottom that they built, like massive tanks. And every night, maybe not every night, but every night, every other night.
So the tank's already there?
No, they build the tank. Like you build a swimming pool. Like
you're dumb.
You don't have a pool in your backyard. It's grass and dirt. You dig a big hole, then you lay it with concrete. Insert pool. You don't have tanks. You clear the ground, dig hole, build said tanks.
All right, let's go fill that guy's head with a whole bunch of global warming propaganda and see how we do as a society. Is every gas station an oil well? That's people don't know how the world is built, right? This is a big concern. Anti-Socialist League says we need to stop misgendering the Democrat Party. They are the Democrat Socialist Party. Yeah, I think that's true. The DSP. All right. In pretty shocking and alarming news, in Europe, England has moved completely to the digital ID system. The digital ID system is, you know, when you listen to Catherine Austin Fitts talk about livestock management, the digital ID system is livestock management for we the people. It connects your biometric data. So now every time you walk into a store, a Walmart, a gas station that has security camera set up, pretty much every modern security system has the ability to plug into a facial recognition AI. So you walk into a Walmart, it knows you're there. You walk into a gas station, it knows you're there. You're driving down the freeway and you drive by one of those camera sensors, those whatever programs that we've talked about on the show before, they know you're driving. Okay. Now, on top of that, now they can trace all your digital purchases because you use that digital ID that's tracked your biometric data for your credit cards and your online purchases. So now everything you ever search, ever look at, it's not just kind of like, hey, it came from your phone. Now they can officially say it came from you, right? They can officially say this is your money or whatever the case is. This allows them to control what you do or don't do. This allows them to potentially control if you work or don't work. This allows them to control what you can buy or not buy or how much of something you can buy. So England has made the official move to digital ID. Keir Starmer yesterday, I don't know if this was yesterday, it doesn't even matter, it was the last couple days, made this announcement. And I want to listen to this, and I want you to be scared to death.
And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them. And of course, the truth is, we won't solve our problems if we don't also take on the root causes, looking upstream to tackle poverty, conflict. And that is why today I am...
So England has allowed mass migration. They have created a social safety net that supports the mass migration, pays for people to have housing, helps people with jobs and a universal income. And now they want to implement this digital ID. Now, if the digital ID, potentially it could be used for deportation. England has a huge problem with getting people who've come there illegally or legally through the asylum process deported. Huge problem. Like they've deported a couple dozen people in the last years. I mean, and there's like, we have to make sure that we can do it, that the courts will approve it. It's it's harder for them. Okay. I don't know. Just is. Probably because they had so many years under the EU where they had an open border. Okay. So with this now, though, they're saying if you don't get this specific government issued digital ID, you will not be allowed to work. This is a violation. As an American, we talk about fundamental rights, your liberty to contract, the ability to bargain for your to make a living. This fundamentally violates that. Let me just pull it right. Got my legal dictionary here, Black's Law. I'm going to actually pull it up here. So if I look up the word liberty, L-I-B. Okay, if I look up the word liberty and I look up in liberty the sub definition of liberty to contract. I want to read that to you because this is an inalienable right that in England is being taken away from you if you don't meet their conditions. One of the things I talk about at 1776live.us all the time is that when we talk rights, civil rights, these are flexible. They're changing. Oh, you have a right to work. Oh, you have a right to work if you do this. That's sifting sand, right? You're telling me you guys can just legislate this? I mean, that's exactly what they're doing. Okay, liberty. I don't know why this is so hard for me to find. Okay, liberty to contract. The ability at will to make or abstain from making a binding obligation enforced by the sanctions at law. The right to contract about one's affairs, including the right to make contracts of employment and to obtain the best terms one can as the result of private bargaining. You no longer have the right to private bargain for your labor in England unless you have one of these ID cards. And I promise you, if you have one of these ID cards, and now they're saying, well, your job at a corporation, that's a creature of the state, by the way, is in the public interest, we can now regulate your hours, we can regulate what you're doing. I mean, they're already doing that, but now it's like hard and fast. Like they just completely removed your liberty to contract by inserting this requirement, right? It's a big deal, guys. Like, it's not just about, hey, every reasonable person says we need to have ID. Yeah, you should have some identification credentials, but it's the digital ID and what they can do with it that should freak us out. And the fact that England's doing that, the United States already has the program in place with Real ID. Guys, like this is a red line for some people. This is the same as for some people being like, you're never putting that needle in my arm, right? It's the same concept. In the New Testament, in the book of Revelations, it talks about getting a mark to buy and sell, right? Same concept here. You got to be registered to buy and sell. Yeah, Carlite says, nice move breaking out the Black's Law dictionary. In the US, we have social security number. Is that not the same? It is not the same, right? Connecting to your biometric data is completely different. Letting the government know every time I walk in a gas station, every time I walk into Walmart, letting the government connect that data. It's one thing for me to have a loyalty card at Walmart. right? And then they know, and because Walmart does things like they figure out who's loitering in certain spots and they figure out shelf height, like the amount of data they can gather now and make decisions on marketing decisions, it's astronomical, right? Go read Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point. It talks about some of the ability they had 20 years ago to do mail marketing that was so targeted that Target knew when someone was pregnant before the spouse or the parent of the pregnant person knew about it, right? Target figured it out from pattern recognition. So imagine giving the government your digital ID where they can affirmatively say and track all of your activity. That's the problem. It's not that those things exist. It's not that when I put my social security number on an application, I'm volunteering it. I'm saying, hey, I want to enter into this agreement, or I'm that's part of my bargaining. Okay. However, when now it's digital, it's presumed I don't have a choice. I go into the store, boom, they got me. Right? And they can connect all of my behavior and activity. We live in a world where if you Googled MAGA, if you bought a Make America Great Again hat on Amazon, you ended up on a Treasury watch list. That's the world we're living in. It's about the government having this information. It's not about Amazon making a better algorithm to advertise to me. It's not about Instagram knowing what ads I'm going to click on and loiter on. I mean, those are all offensive, right? Those are all like, but at least it makes sense. Those are commercial companies trying to sell me something. What is the government trying to do for me? Oh, we're trying to protect you. Protect me from what? My searches? Protect me from what? My own deeply held religious beliefs and ideology? You're living in a time where currently, recent history, I'm telling you, I was debanked for my political beliefs. Not because of what happened on January 6th. It was because of why I was there. It's not that I was there, it's why I was there that they amplified the debanking, the social media censorship, the shadow ban. I believe we're still running under a shadow ban. Please don't forget to repost the show on Rumble. It definitely helps us get extra unique viewers. So definitely do that. But the point is I'm being shadow banned. It's still a lingering effect, right? I still don't have my career, right? Because of all of this stuff. You're living in that world. Don't fool yourself and think, oh, it won't happen here. When Keir Starmer says, well, reasonable people want us to fix these problems. Keir, I don't want the government to tell me that for me to have a right to work, I have to have a digital ID card. With right comes obligations. Is the government now obligated to provide a job? Because if I can't work without the ID card, then rights come with corresponding obligations. So if you're giving me the right, which is the benefit, where's the job? Okay, so now we're in a welfare state. You're one step away from having assigned jobs when you can't work without a digital ID card, when you can't privately bargain your labor without one. You guys realize this extends to like shoveling the snow for your neighbor and then she gives you a tip. Right? Like they want to take away cash. They want to take away your ability to barter and exchange with quote money without them knowing about it. They don't want the money. They can print the freaking stuff. Literally, Elon Musk told us there were 20 plus printers that were disconnected from appropriations or anything. They can print all the money they want. They don't want your money. They want control of you. That's all the government cares about. They do not care about money. They do not care about profit. They do not care about anything but control. That's it. You're the product. You're the money. That's what you want. The digital ID, people have to assess that deeply. You do not live in a world where they won't change the laws around you. Here's an example in Delaware. Delaware is supposed to be one of these great states for corporations, right? And why? Because it provides a whole bunch of shareholder protections. It allows shareholders to hold the companies accountable. It also allows the shareholder to have some anonymity, right? Well, Elon Musk and a lot of great corporations are incorporated in Delaware. Well, here's the governor of Delaware, because guess what? Elon Musk got into a little litigation over his compensation. So Delaware just changed the law. You don't live in a world where you can depend on your quote rights, where you can depend on things like your right to privacy through the Fourth Amendment. Verizon and AT&T gave the government data on January 6th. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and other banks volunteered data that normally would be required to be received through subpoena and warrant, just gave it to them. And you want to connect your digital ID to all that stuff so you can't even create a layer of separation, right? Here in Delaware, they'll just change the laws just because one guy was taking advantage of the laws in Delaware, I guess.
Did not change.
Million entities. We don't just like one company leaves and we
right, but
dramatically
you're
change the law.
you're
We
suggesting
don't
the
do
law did not change
I'm saying
as
the
a
law
result of this
changes all
Tesla
the
case?
time. Absolutely not. Absolutely. I mean, there were
really
the law you're talking about, Senate
Yeah.
Bill 21.
Wow, Twitter's already getting mad at you.
Passed the
They say
Senate.
the Delaware
Passed the
governor is
Senate
lying. He's
unanimously.
changed the law because of Elon.
Listen, we're not making law based on tweets. I hate to break it to you.
I know, but
Can I be honest with you? I believe if I FOIA'd all of the FOIA, meaning Freedom of Information Act, if I were to get all of the communications between all of the political class in Delaware that voted to change the law,
which is unanimous in the Senate, bipartisan,
sure,
and a supermajority in the House,
the word Elon and Tesla would be in all of the emails.
You should do it because it wasn't in any of my emails or was not discussed. It's about creating predictability. I apologize to you if people are spending time on social media. You can make
forget about social media. You understand why people would say this is a law that is in direct relationship to the Tesla case. You understand why that would be?
Sure. People say all sorts of things that are not accurate.
So why did the law change if it had nothing to do with Tesla?
The law changed because when I came in as governor, we had to make sure that our jurisprudence, that our corporate law, which is preeminent in the world for creating a nonpartisan place for businesses to resolve complex dispute, remained predictable, clear, and fair. And there was a sense in certain transactions we had to revise the law so that it was clear to the judiciary. There was gray in the law. It wasn't about making one case go in one direction or the other.
No, it's not going to. It has no. Unfortunately, it has no impact on that case. But it was in direct relationship to how that case played out.
It was in direct relationships to numerous corporate leaders telling myself, other political leaders in Delaware, and business and corporate leaders, legal leaders in our legal profession, that there was a lack of clarity. There was a gray in the law that was hampering corporate decision making, not just in Delaware, but in New York and across the globe.
To correct, like what was kind of a mistake for what the end result was, though, too, right?
Correct from a specific case. That's not.
I can't see any other legal reason other than he makes too much money for a court to try to violate a contract entered into by the CEO.
Listen, I can't comment on pending litigation in any way. If you look at every action we've taken, you can FOIA everything, and people already have.
Is that a verb now? It's got to be in the OED.
FOIAing?
Yeah. FOIA.
It is in my.
So here's the gist of basically what happened there. Right. So Elon Musk is incorporated in Delaware, supposed to have all these great shareholder protections and, everything's supposed to be clear. And what happened was when they amended they call it Section 220, right? The shareholder rights to inspection. They modify it. And they quote, tighten shareholder access to corporate books and records by imposing stricter documentation requirements for inspection requests. It allows corporations to set reasonable limitations for the use of records, aiming to reduce frivolous and overly broad demands, and seeks to balance shareholder rights with corporate protections against excessive litigation. Here's the problem. In Delaware, the whole point is the shareholders can hold the board accountable. So now they stepped in and they made it harder to do that. But at the same time, they basically broke a sacred contract, right? And to modify Elon Musk's pay. They brought in regulations. The bill aims to attract and retain businesses. But see, the problem is businesses are like, hey, there's no advantage to Delaware anymore. We're getting out. That's what's going on, right? And the critics, including some academics and the plaintiff's bar, argue that changes favor corporate management and may weaken minority shareholder protections by limiting their ability to challenge conflicted transactions or to access records. My point in showing this, and you kind of got, maybe I should have set this up a little better, but you got to get out into the weeds a little bit. But your rights, these laws that regulate this stuff, the public interest, sifting sand. It changes. They'll just change the law or not enforce the law or reinterpret the law. That's the whole MO they've got here. Time and time again, they do that. And here's the thing. It's not a recent thing. They lie to us. They mislead you. They give you evidence that's not real. Here's Anna Paulina Luna reaching all the way back to the JFK assassination. What if I told you Lee Harvey Oswald was standing next to JFK and wasn't actually the shooter in the building? Wouldn't that be revelatory? What if the government was sitting on evidence, an actual video of that?
I would like to actually tell the American people, it was made aware to me this evening that NBC actually has a video that's never been seen before. We're actually going to be sending a letter requesting that from NBC because it allegedly shows Oswald near the vehicle when the assassination took place, which means that he couldn't have been the shooter. So again, we're tracking down all this information. But look, there's even a CIA document that came out that Mr. Morley pointed out that actually said that the CIA never bought the lone gunman theory. And so I think the American people had an inclination as to what we were saying, but we never had the hard evidence until now. And so it's important to note that in a free and fair society, how could you operate or have an agency operating in the shadows? And so kudos to President Trump, also Director Radcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard for pushing for this transparency. It is going to be generational changing that they've done this. And we hope to bring forward legislation to ensure that this never happens again for future generations to come.
You're saying NBC has been keeping this tape of Oswald under wraps?
Correct. In fact, Director Stone actually told us that he was showed this tape, that it was a second copy, and that tell you though, Jesse, is he said that NBC's been very, very much so guarding this tape. And so I believe that that tape belongs to the American people. We are going to be sending a letter asking for that tape. And I would encourage everyone to ask NBC to release that tape to the public. It's important, not just for our investigations, but so the American people know the truth as to what happened with John F. Kennedy.
All right. Well, I think they will release.
All right, give me just a second, you guys. For whatever reason, my microphone on my one, I can't seem to undo that there. So I'm going to try something a little unconventional. For some reason, I am unable. Can I get you guys? Okay, you can hear me now, but you're not hearing me through my normal mic. You're hearing me through my second computer. Yes, that's correct. And for whatever reason, I am completely unable to get this mic going. It's like the button's just dead. Don't know what's up. Well, I'm going to take advantage of the moment, and I'm going to do this because I want to get it done. Did you know the biggest threat to your retirement, and I'm even going to do this. I'm even going to turn on this camera. All right. Did you know the biggest threat to your retirement? What is happening here? What is going on? Did you know the biggest threat to your retirement is something that's talked about often? Our increased longevity in America means default retirement accounts like IRAs, 401ks, and TSPs may not suffice. If you have over $100,000 in your retirement account, get instant access to a free 2-minute report from Augusta Precious Metals that reveals the one step you can take to secure your financial future. Text SAFE, S-A-F-E, to 35052, 35052 today. Okay. Let's come back here and see if I can turn my mic on. This is the weirdest thing. Try this. Sorry, guys. Biggest apologies. I think we had like an internet crap out. Try that again. Yeah, why can't I enable my microphone? Okay, can you hear me now? Man, I really appreciate you guys sticking around. I'm not exactly, can you guys hear me now? It won't let me, you must be growing too fast. The Matrix had to come after you. That's kind of what I thought. I was like, that's probably exactly what's going on here. It's not really making sense why it's like my just straight up can't all right. I am going to have to do this in a very pain in the butt way. So let me leave the stream, come back here. I apologize, you guys. It's just the nature of 21st century internet, I guess. Okay, it's telling me I have to enable access to the camera in my settings. But where would those settings be? My browser settings? It's like it's trying to tell me that I turned off access to the microphone, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Doesn't make any sense. What is the dealio? Everything was working fine. And then Anna Paulina Luna talking about the JFK assassination got the whole thing screwed up. Who knows what's going on here? Yep, they came for me, didn't they? All right. There is literally nothing that I can do. I mean, I am absolutely doing everything that I can't even change the camera. All right, guys, guess what? We got lucky today. I'm going to have to probably just wrap her up. You can hear me? You can still hear me? Is it good enough to keep going? If it's good enough to keep going, I'll just keep going. We can hear you. We can hear you. Okay, well, then I guess we'll make it work. This is extremely annoying on my end. Who knows? Maybe it'll just randomly come back if we get going. Okay, we're moving on to J6 now. All right, so J6, I want to show you guys this video. This video is from this right here is one of my friends. Okay, so this video, there's no sound to it, but this is on January 6th. This is inside the Capitol. And what happened here is this gentleman, his name is Jared, along with another guy, Jason, they were around the corner here, you know, doing one of those deals they were doing, you know, you stole the election. Anyways, nothing happened. No violence, no nothing happened. But Jared got kind of pulled out of the crowd. They were kind of making an example out of him, and they ended up zip tying him. And they took him around the corner here, and then what they did is they let him go. This actually happened a lot on January 6th. There were quite a few people who got detained and then were immediately turned around and let go. So that's what happened to Jared here. This is not a federal agent. I was in prison with this man. Okay. So they let him go. They undo the zip ties, and then he turns around. He turns around and he's a jovial guy. He gives him a fist bump, like, "Hey, man, thanks for letting me go. We back the blue, blah, blah, blah," right? So this video has been circulated by senators, by all kinds of people as evidence that this guy is a Fed. That guy is not a Fed at all. His name is Jared. And he's a good guy, okay? He's not a Fed. But you're going to see a lot of that because what happened yesterday was we've got word that there were 275 plainclothes FBI agents in the crowd on January 6th. This runs in direct contradiction to what Christopher Wray had released towards the end of the Biden administration, saying there was like 25 or 26. Totally different scenario. So here's John Solomon teasing out the report that did come out this morning, 275 agents in the crowd.
I want to talk a little bit about accountability and FBI. Tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up to a major story at Just the News. It answers a question that we've tried to pose for the last 5 years. Did FBI agents themselves believe the FBI had become biased? Tomorrow, you're going to see not one, not two, not five, not 10, but scores of FBI agents telling their leadership in an internal memo after January 6th that they believe the FBI had become politically biased against the conservative movement and for liberals. And they cite extraordinary circumstances, extraordinary details, extraordinary statements. It's so rare for the FBI to speak up against their leadership internally, but this happened on Chris Wray's watch. Now, all the while, Chris Wray was telling Congress, we don't have a political bias problem, even though his own agents were saying day in and day out, they, in fact, had a political bias problem. The other thing we're going to answer for you, for the first time, we're going to be able to give you a specific number. How many plainclothes FBI agents were in the crowd and working the Capitol on the day of January 6th? Now, we knew there were 23 undercover informants. We got you that data a few months ago. Tomorrow, we're going to tell you an astounding number. Yes, it's a very large number of FBI agents that were on the scene when the riot was breaking out, all in plain clothes, all unable to be seen. Chris Wray would never answer that question to Congress. We're going to answer it for you with these documents we're going to make public. Meanwhile, on the issue of the FBI, and maybe one of the men who owns some of the legacy of that politicized FBI, James Comey, a grand jury in Richmond right now, is considering evidence about whether he lied to Congress in September of 2020. The statute of limitations coming up next Tuesday. Today, prosecutors.
So we did find out about, obviously, James Comey. We've covered that. But 275 agents in the crowd on January 6th. Now, if we go back to Thomas Massie, one of the few really good things that he did do, he got Merrick Garland on the record claiming that he didn't think there were anybody in the crowd and he didn't have information. All complete lies.
Constitutional duty to do oversight. Now, in that video, that was your answer to a question to me 2 years ago. When I said how many agents or assets of the government were present on January 5th and January 6th and agitating in the crowd to go into the Capitol and how many went into the Capitol. Can you answer that now?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, last time, you don't know how many there were or there were none?
I don't know the answer to either of those questions. If there were any, I don't know how many. I don't know whether there are any.
I think you may have just perjured yourself that you don't know that there were any. You want to say that again, that you don't know that there were any?
I have no personal knowledge of this matter. I think what I said the last time.
You've had 2 years to find out. And the day, by the way, that was in reference to Ray Epps. And yesterday you indicted him. Isn't that a wonderful coincidence? On a misdemeanor. Meanwhile, you're sending grandmas to prison. You're putting people away for 20 years for merely filming. Some people weren't even there yet. You got the guy on video. He's saying go into the Capitol. He's directing people to the Capitol before the speech ends. He's at the site of the first breach. You've got all the goods on him, 10 videos, and it's an indictment for a misdemeanor. The American public isn't buying it. I yield the balance of my time to Chairman Jordan.
May I answer the question?
I'm going to ask you one now. We'll let the gentleman.
Yeah.
Go ahead, but
in discovery, in the cases that were filed with respect to January 6, the Justice Department prosecutors provided whatever information they had about the question that you're asking. With respect to Mr. Epps, the FBI has said that he was not an employee or informant of the FBI. Mr. Epps has been charged, and there's a proceeding, I believe, going on today on that subject.
The charge.
What's crazy about Ray Epps being charged, so for those of you that don't know, Ray Epps was standing next to James Grant and Ryan Samsel at the site of the initial breach. Man, even my camera angle is like, what is the deal? It's like my camera got all up close on me. I don't know. I think I have gremlins in the machine. There's monkeys in the machine. So Ray Epps was at the site of the initial breach. He's the one who whispered into Ryan Sandlin's ear, and then over to James Grant, and then they made the initial breach. James Grant, when I got into prison with him, he didn't know who Ray Epps was. Like, he knew about the guy, but he didn't know that was Ray Epps. He'd been in prison the whole time. He'd been denied discovery. They weren't allowed to ask about him. He was prevented from asking about him. So I remember like telling him about Ray Epps, and he was like, "Are you serious?" Well, Ray Epps got charged with a single misdemeanor count. This is a guy who was there at the initial breach, telling people to go in the Capitol, trespassed all over the Capitol, and then he picked up a sign and surfed the sign on top of the crowd. Everybody who touched that sign got charged with a 111B, assault with a deadly weapon. Okay. Now Ray Epps, even though he's the one who like initiated all of that, he got a single misdemeanor charge. Of all the 1,600 almost January 6 cases, nobody got one charge. The minimum you got was the 4 misdemeanor charges. But they gave Ray Epps 1 misdemeanor charge. Then he quickly pled to it. And then he was given no jail time, and he was given 1 year unsupervised probation. And the judge was like, "Oh, your life's already been destroyed. Tucker Carlson talked to you on the news. Life's already been destroyed. Everybody's life's been destroyed." If you want to know how bad it was for J6ers on a whole, let me show you this here. So this was a judge who posted this yesterday, trying to get some type of credit for having been like, I don't know, compassionate with people. See, I'm sharing this and it's creating an audio feedback for me. Why? But I'm supposed to be muted. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't matter. Okay. On December 6, 2024, Mr. Adams failed to appear for his pretrial conference. Mr. Adams was charged with misdemeanors. Mr. Adams' attorney, Stephen Brenwald, informed the court that Mr. Adams was on a flight from Ohio to Washington, D.C. Mr. Brenwald explained that it was the only flight that Mr. Adams could afford. Mr. Adams was living in poverty. He was sleeping in his car and finding gig work where he could. Mr. Adams has spent the bulk of his savings on a suit for the trial. On December 8, 2024, the court asked Mr. Brenwald for an update on Mr. Adams' status, including where Mr. Adams would be residing during the trial. Mr. Brenwald informed the court that Mr. Adams spent $150 the prior night to stay in a motel approximately an hour away in Maryland. Mr. Brenwald explained that the travel time to and from the hotel was interfering with trial preparation. After one night in a hotel experience, Mr. Adams' net worth was $170. Mr. Adams had to set aside much of the $170 to purchase a bus ticket back to Ohio following the trial. As such, he had no money for a hotel food during the week of the trial. On December 9th, 2024, prior to jury selection, the court asked for updates on Mr. Adams' access to food and shelter. Mr. Adams planned to sleep on a park bench during the week-long trial, which was taking place in the winter. Mr. Brenwald refused to leave his client literally out in the cold. Mr. Brenwald offered to assume the cost of housing Mr. Adams at a nearby hotel for 2 nights, totaling $420. Mr. Brenwald subsequently found a friend to provide free lodging for Mr. Adams. So this judge basically allowed the defense attorney to pick up the cost, but the judge posted this in some recent filing, essentially saying, listen, I was merciful. I allowed all this to happen. During the trial, Adams planned to sleep on a park bench in D.C. He had spent his life and paltry savings on a suit. Farqui, who was the judge, who had to take over the case from Judge Jackson because he had another trial at the time, presumably another Rush J6 trial, ordered the government to pay for travel, housing, and food for Adams. Apparently, by posting this now, Farqui wants some sort of kudos for what he did. This is effing enraging, says Julie Kelly, to spare the lectures about the independence of the Biden DOJ, weaponization of the DOJ more than any other president in history. They targeted a guy. They targeted a guy for misdemeanors. The guy was homeless. He couldn't work for 4 years, right? It was extremely difficult for them to do that. Now, with James Comey quitting, this is nuts. So Lindsay Halligan, who's the new United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, had somebody resign yesterday. It was Troy A. Edwards Jr. Who's Troy Edwards Jr.? Well, he's married to Maureen Comey, who's Maureen Comey, James Comey's daughter. So this Troy A. Edwards was in the Eastern District of Virginia, which is where they were trying to indict James Comey, and apparently he resigned just before the indictment. He wrote to Miss Halligan, "To uphold my oath to the Constitution and country, I hereby resign as an assistant United States attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia in the Department of Justice, effective immediately." Well, good. Do you think we could trust you at all? No way. This is why I have very little faith. He was in the Eastern District of Virginia where they're trying to get an indictment on James Comey, his father-in-law. Yeah, to uphold your oath to the Constitution, you better get out of there. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. The other thing Donald Trump did today was he assigned a second executive order extending this whole Antifa terrorism charge, and Stephen Miller explained a little bit more about it as well. So let's take a listen.
Agitators, professional anarchists and agitators, and they get hired by wealthy people, some of whom I know, I guess, probably know them.
All right, that is horrible. There is something going on with my internet. Something not good. I have no idea. It was so weird. It's very frustrating that I can't get my mic on. Okay, well, anyways, he signed the executive order to essentially do more to dismantle Antifa. So we'll see how that's going. There's a big war meeting with Pete Hegseth. He's ordered all the generals and a bunch of top commanders to return back to Virginia, to Quantico, for a huge meeting. This last time this happened, they reorganized the whole U.S. military. Time before that, we went to war. So that'll be kind of interesting. J.D. Vance sat down with Laura Ingraham, and he said this. He says, people will go to jail for this. He's talking about Antifa and funding Antifa. We're looking at the funding networks. We're looking at people who are inciting violence. We're looking at the people who are promoting and encouraging violence. This takes time to do it the right way. We're going to make sure that we do this the right way. With First Amendment concerns, of course, we have to protect people's First Amendment rights, have to protect people's free speech rights, but the First Amendment does not protect imminent incitements to violence. If you are actively promoting your fellow man to kill other people, that is not protected by the First Amendment, and we have to be clear about that. We have to go after that stuff. I think that's really good. Okay. All right, you guys, I am going to go ahead and wrap it up. We did make it to an hour and 25, so we've got plenty of show in. There's some stuff that kind of gets left on the chopping block. Big thing about Hillary Clinton saying white Christians are the ruin of this nation. She literally said the idea that you can turn back the clock and try to recreate a world that never was dominated by, let's say it, white men of certain persuasion, certain religion, certain ideology. It's just doing such damage to what we should be aiming for. So Hillary Clinton said that, but simultaneously yesterday, the largest streamer in the world, Aiden Ross, who's Jewish, by the way, but not really a practicing Jew, said, I honestly feel that if we had a society run off Christianity alone, I think it would be a beautiful society, and I think it would be great. So there's definitely a culture war happening out there. Christianity is definitely on the rise. I really appreciate things that Charlie Kirk did and many, many other people have done, including many of you that are listening today. All right, guys, please don't forget to go into Rumble, repost the show, go ahead and like the show, leave a comment as well. It helps. All of it helps with the algorithm. And I apologize for the audio issues. I don't know what happened. Anna Paulina Luna told us that Oswald wasn't the shooter. It was literally in a video that NBC's been sitting on for like 60 plus years, standing next to the car. So he's not the shooter. Wrap your head around that for a second. Even conspiracy theorists assume Oswald did something. Lies, lies, and more lies. No wonder people are questioning Charlie Kirk. No wonder people are questioning everything that's happened. These people can never keep their story straight, and they lie, lie, lie. In fact, the only thing they do right is keep their story straight, despite the evidence to the contrary. All right, guys, that's it for us today. No private, because I don't know what's going on with this microphone thing. But it'll all get fixed up by Monday. And who knows, maybe we'll even get lucky and do some kind of extra show over the weekend. So we'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, see you guys on Monday, maybe tomorrow. We'll see.